Hello, Straight Talk audience. This is AI Gonzalo Lira, and this is Straight Talk, Cyber Cafe Edition.
Hey, welcome to another edition of the Liberty Report with Professor Red Pill and I'm Maxwell from the Liberty Rising Group. Wow, it's been we missed a week, but it's fine. We're making it up because we got some good stuff ahead of you with the everything bubble that's coming up, and yeah, today being October 22nd, let's get into it. Adam, take us away.
Well, what's been the theme of this year? Collapse 2025. And what have we been seeing? Well, more of that. Lots happen, and yet everything stays the same. We continue on this track towards decivilization, bubbles, ruin, conflict, warfare, reduced living standards, reduced happiness, increased overcrowding, increased crime. Lots of terrible stuff.
Yeah, I mean the situation is like the everything bubble is literally everything. So I broke it down originally in the Telegram group, links in the description. Basically, we're seeing a trifecta of economic poo-poo. And the first economic poo-poo is what we predicted as the AI bubble, the big tech crunch. I mean, we've done 3 or 4 podcasts, or at least I have, and then you've been on every one of them anyway. So I think this is the third Liberty report where we're talking about big tech, AI, bubble crash, and we were predicting this, 2 years now, year and a half at least. We called the first tech, like the big meltdown where they did the massive layoffs of tech people and administrative people, the big tech firms. And then there was the venture capitalist bank. I can't remember the name of it. The meltdown there. We called that. We called all that. Gave timeline and everything. Um, we called dollar decline, 2025. There would be a correction in crypto, but we saw Trump's tariffs in the beginning of, called it in March, said, yeah, it would happen right about that time. We called it again. And I said, there's a correction coming, like the week of the 50% correction in the crypto market again. And basically predicted $50 silver, $100,000 Bitcoin, all that, everything, called it, said it when it would happen, said crypto, $50 silver would happen in October, towards the end of the year. We would see $50 silver. I was saying that we could go as high as 4,000 in gold, maybe 5,000 by the end of the year. And this is all hashtag collapse 2025. And I mean, everything we called, gave the deadline, gave it the timetables, exactly when it would happen, all this stuff based off of the quantitative that I've been doing. And like I said, I'm an associate professor at the university in Georgia, and this is what I teach. I teach business and trends and leadership. So I mean, got a lot of weight behind that. But more importantly, like I said, with the trifecta to get to the point, AI bubble, housing bubble, or the financial markets, derivatives market bubble, along with hyperinflation. So we're going to see 1970s style hyperinflation, which we're already in. We've been in that for a while now. That started in COVID due to QE to infinity. We predicted a big tech crunch and bubble, which is we're ongoing. It's continually going on the financial markets, up to a 70% correction in the stock market, stemmed from what's called the dot-com bubble from the 90s. But this isn't going to be a dot-com bubble. This is going to be an actual AI bubble, which is similar. And the reason why is because there's an overvaluation. What is it? Speculation, or there's a term for it in investments.
There's over speculation, it's frenzy,
Yeah,
it's boom bust, but what
yeah.
you have is malinvestment because of
Correct.
the inflation, because of the
The hype.
counterfeit money
Well,
system. Well,
the hype as well.
there are
Yeah.
throughout financial markets as they progress, it's deterministic almost how financial markets move. You have speculation, you have it peaks up to a maximum, then it falls down. And when you zoom in, and this could be months, but when you zoom in, that's what it looks like. If you zoom back out, it hopefully goes in a pretty straight line, but you zoom in, you zoom out, it's going to look like that. That's how markets move, but these cycles are expanded, amplified because of the influx of counterfeit money, because of the money printing resulting in inflation. Where does that money go? It flows into all of these, especially legacy markets, stocks, tech stocks, especially pension funds, bonds, all of and this has a massive effect on the economy. And so when it inevitably has to blow up. The Nobel Prize this year was granted to some economists talking about the joys and the necessity of creative destruction. That is the engine of capitalism. This is Joseph Schumpeter. If you do not allow destruction because you have state propping everything up, which is zombie economy, we've spoken about a lot, as well as just simply flooding the market with all this counterfeit money, which is what inflation is, them printing money, which causes prices to go up. You have amplification of these cycles, and it results in serious booms and serious crashes rather than a more dampened or a more natural oscillation. And that's again, .com, there was a crash. 2007, 2008, there was kind of a crash, but then they flooded the market with money and held everything up. 2015, they went, oh, maybe things are going to be bad again, put more money in. 2020 should have melted down. No, flood the money. Just print. Doesn't matter, just keep printing. And since then, all the price inflation or the price increases, it's gone up because of that inflation, because when you print money, it takes about 18-24 months for you to feel it in the economy. So everyone says, oh, look at the Biden inflation. Well, yeah, because Trump printed all this money, Biden continued printing all the money because it's the same Federal Reserve. But it takes 2 years for you to really feel it, or 18 months. And then you had the war in Ukraine and the government sanctions. So what really harmed the economy in 2020? Was it coronavirus? To some extent, but mostly it was the government's reaction to the purported pandemic of coronavirus. Okay. 2022, did the war in Ukraine really affect the global economy so much? Well, it didn't have to. What was really impactful was the government's reactions to this. And so you've got this massive demand push through flooding the markets with money. Then you've got this massive supply contraction, and these are particularly through the government decrees, government actions and diktats, sanctions, restricting trade, restrictions. And so it's this double where we're experiencing stagflation. Plus, and this is the international relations. We can also look on the domestic front, and we can see there was an interview in the past 2 weeks of Boris Johnson coming out on the radio or a radio show or something saying, oh yeah, we were worried that wages were going to go up in the UK during coronavirus because and that would be bad because it would make things cost more. So we said, let's just flood the country with millions of foreigners so we can keep the cost of services down and the wages of British people. It's like, hold on. So not only do you have these international relations things, something we've talked about constantly is these domestic factors that cause real wage stagnation or decline. And so all these factors plus the financial, all of these is just there was a saying 70 years ago, I think it was Harold Macmillan, you've never had it so good. Well, you've never had it so bad. I don't think it's been this bad for anyone the past since 1930s, maybe
So
45 Germany.
So that being said, that you brought that in, like I said, the trifecta that I'm predicting for collapse 2025 that I've been talking about for the last 2 years, 4 years. I mean, I've been working on the research, the quantitative on this for a long time, since 2014. But as we get closer to 2025, the picture becomes a lot more, it's just like predicting the weather. So, I mean, as the hurricane starts coming in, the hurricane of economic shitness, when it starts coming, getting closer and closer, you get a better prediction, a better understanding of what the devastation is going to be, or the potential impact. So we're looking at a category 5 style hurricane of economic shitness coming to hit the global economy, not just the United States, not just Russia, not just China, the whole entire damn planet. Like, there's a massive like cyclone of economic shitness. So the trifecta is, we're going to see a 1929 style crash, we're going to see dot-com bubble, and then we're going to see a 2008 type recession due to derivatives markets in the financial sector, where the money's just going to get erased. All this is happening at one time. And we can see this reflected in the gold and silver prices, the Bitcoin going to infinity and beyond. 130,000, I think, was its peak. It took a huge dip, but of course, silver and gold also came down. It was predicted. I mean, it's going to happen. You have the influx, and then you're going to have the pullback. But there is another reason why the gold and silver prices shot up, and something's going on in China right now. I don't know if you're aware of that. Currently, China is buying a massive amount of gold, huge amount of gold,
It's not just
in a
China,
very short period of time.
It's all the central banks around the world. They're all buying up lots and lots of gold. Some of them are buying up some Bitcoin, and a lot of what. Listen, they announce the gold that they're buying, but they only announce however much they announce, right? We're pretty sure they buy more behind the scenes. They have undeclared reserves.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's that, but China is actually publicly acknowledging how much gold they're buying, and it's a massive amount, and it's in a short period of time. I mean, this happened since the tariffs. So Trump's
China
tariffs
has
came in.
they also have undeclared results, but they are we don't know how much is undeclared, but they're saying we are buying this much, and it's a lot of gold.
Anyway, so the reality is that China, because of Trump's tariffs, they bought a massive amount of gold in a short period of time. That's why it shot up so quickly recently. They bought a huge amount that was publicly disclosed to let the United States and let the world know that the dollar is tanking, and that's what the theory is. But more or less, there is undisclosed amount of gold they could be buying through private banks and different types of like channels. There's only so much gold to go around, to be honest. Like, you can only buy so much of it. It's a scarce commodity. So
sure, but also we don't know how much gold there is. We don't know how much gold is being mined. We don't know who has the gold. Right? This is one of the good things about gold. It's also maybe a bad thing. I don't know. Bitcoin, you know how much Bitcoin is out there. Mostly, some of it's lost. Some of it, who knows? It's in cold storage. But you know that there's exactly this many Bitcoin. There's only this many. Gold, they could have a gold mine that we don't know about, that they're mining, refining, and storing. It's all state run, and we don't know about it. Who knows? The point is they declare how much they declare, and it's big and impressive. And then also they have other things. I'd just like to say that the increase in gold price is not monocausal. China, this is a big player, definitely impacts it. But if you look at gold price, any chart, zoom out to 1, 5, 10, 100 years, you'll see that the Chinese buying gold right now has not had a decisive impact on the price of gold. What is having that decisive impact is this is the monetary policy since the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913. And what we are experiencing is the death of fiat. So the proliferation of fiat, the death of fiat. What I was looking at is, if you look at stocks versus gold, stocks have done very well in the period from 2009 till 2023. It's been kind of parabolic. But since 2023, gold and silver has been a far better investment. Why is that? Well, if there's little volatility. The only real growth was in crypto or stocks, and stocks is this traditional legacy system. Crypto, there's been so much opportunity. There's been a lot of volatility, but also, again, you zoom out, it's been going up and up and up and up. Gold and silver have been going up and up and up and up and up because the price of money has gone down, the proliferation of fiat. If you look at house prices compared to gold, right, because all prices are ratios. If you look at the price of a house in 1950 and the price of gold and the price of a house today and the price of gold, you will see it's actually rather stable. So what's changed? The dollar's gone down, the yen's gone down, the euro, all fiat, because you're printing it, because it's paper. The value of that's going down. The point is to say that if we look at, hang on a sec. If we look at stocks versus gold, I've got a chart here from 2003. I've got one trust manager that's done very well. I mean, 1,500% since 2003. Gold's done 1,200% since 2003. And they've, again, outperformed. This past 20 years has been a really good market for stocks, but now we're experiencing volatility and risk and uncertainty and crash, and it's not a great time to be in stocks. I haven't done the financial markets yet. I don't know the best thing to be in right now, but I do know that a couple months ago I put what little money I have into gold, and I've gone up 20-25%. Very pleased with that. And it appears that gold and silver, they're going parabolic. There's no sign of it slowing down. There's no sign of reversal. Gold, silver, metals, and probably commodities and cryptocurrency, these are hard assets as opposed to fiat and stock, which are not. This is really what we're seeing in the financial markets, this fiat proliferation, the death of fiat as the predominant and normal system, and smart money, institutional money, central banks especially, moving away from these system instruments and back to what really holds value: gold, silver, and Bitcoin now, Ethereum, other things, but gold, silver, Bitcoin.
I mean, more or less, like, the question I have is, like, the thing is with commodities is, during the 29 crash, like, the commodities did take a hit temporarily. And, it is what it is. And there was I guess Hoover passed the legislation to have QE, i.e., for farmers to grow more crops. He would compensate them for any losses they took as a result of the commodities market. And the result of that was commodities plummeted as a result. Certain commodities, gold and silver not so much. But the reality is that there's a theory. I followed another influencer who talked about this, that we're going to see commoditization of nations, and this goes back to Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations with global trade. So that's the pure capitalism. Basically, Russia has a lot of oil. United States has a lot of tech, i.e. Bitcoin, different stuff, and the commoditization of nation states is going to be their power, their influence, or their economic GDP will be based on the amount of commodities that are like rare earth minerals, gold, copper, all the stuff that's used for technology, as well as intellectual property, human capital. And this will be commoditized or whatever. They'll use this as a form of transaction. I think that's where it's going to go. Yeah.
We saw this year with
Mhm.
Trump and the mineral rights of Ukraine and Russia, and they said, let's do Steve Witkoff and the Russian one. I forget his name, but he's in charge of the Russian Development Investment Fund. And they said, look, we've got lots of rare earth minerals. USA, we can do a deal, right? You give us the land that now belongs to Russia, and you can come in and we'll commoditize some of our resources, and we can develop it together and we can sell it. We also saw with Palantir and Gates and Trump and Ellison and all that lot is we, the USA, we've got all this natural wealth. Why don't we commoditize it? Why don't we digitize it, put it on a blockchain or something? Then we can, base our tax. The USA isn't broke. Yeah, we're $38 trillion in debt. But actually, if you look at our resources, we've got more than 38 trillion. So we're not
Correct.
actually broke.
That's where I'm saying that's where it's going. I think it's definitely the dollar fiat's going to crash, and they're going to bring in a new market currency, and that's going to be the commoditization. That's where I think it's going. The quantitative and the qualitative is showing that, and I think that the governments are preparing for that. And that's what the whole gold buying situation is, so that they can get kind of a stable way of trading these commodities, and they're going to have to use some type of new form of currency because like fiat's done. Fiat's done. We know it's done. I predicted it would collapse in 2025. That's what hashtag collapse 2025 is, guys. Push that hashtag 2025. We got a lot of videos, a lot of stuff, a lot of people that we follow that we posted with hashtag 2025. So push the hell out of that. I mean, beat the devil out of it, like Bob Ross talks about, man. Beat the devil out of it. Hashtag 2025. Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, everything. Hashtag 2025, collapse 2025, because like this is basically what is going on right now. We are in collapse 2025 as it predicted would happen in October of 2025. We've seen this with the gold and silver prices going to infinity and beyond, and there's no way to pull it back. There's just no way, because the cat is out of the bag. We know the fiat's done. It's pretty obvious. And I said that we would know when fiat's done with the prediction. I said we would know when the actual collapse is going to begin is when gold and when silver hits $50 an ounce and there's no pullback. And when gold hits $4,000 an ounce, that's when we know that the fiat's done. That's when the dollar is going to decline. That's when all fiat currency is going to decline because, i.e., China is the United States' largest trading partner. The United States and China is the largest trading partner together. These countries are dependent on each other through this global system of fiat. And, I don't think China is per se wanting to crash the dollar. I think it's just like they're trying to protect themselves from complete economic Armageddon. And it's not so much the tariffs are basically a result of Trump, like, hey, we need to try to save the dollar. Last ditch effort. It didn't work. It didn't, the Weimar Republic, Germany tried it. They had some repercussions as a result of it, and they eventually went to commoditization. That's what they did. That's how they got out of the hyperinflation, was the commoditization, rebuilding of the military, and then they started invading people for their gold. That's what Germany did. But we're not in that World War II scenario anymore. Now it's like, okay, we're going to use our commodities. We're going to use whatever fiat we can. We're going to try to accumulate as much gold, not through military conquest, but through economic markets. And that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing a replay of 1929, 1930, World War II, but it's done through, like I said, through trade, tariffs, embargoes. And technically, we could see this with Ukraine-Russian war, because that's basically World War III in a sense. And Gerald Celente said we're in World War III. So technically we are seeing similarities, but it's at a smaller scale than it was before, in that regard. That's what I see as the analysis. I don't know if you agree.
I do. Just to highlight on some of the things you said, this is a new system that is coming. Fiat is dying, collapse 2025, which is an ongoing process. We're going through it. It's dying, it's collapsing. You say it's dead, I say it's dead, but it's dying. There's a new system coming. The system planners, those that typically work not within the system, but on the system, at the edge of the system, are preparing for the new system coming in, where their dollar is worthless. It's gone down like 97% since 1913.
98 now. It's not it'll be at 99 by the end of the year. It'd be basically 1% of what it was worth before it was on gold standard, before 29 crash. Yeah.
So 1913, 1929, the crash, they went off the gold standard in the 70s.
Well, they went off temporarily in 29 after World War II, and FDR was said that he was reinstated after World War II. They never did, but they did bring in some gold standard regulations, and then Nixon basically with NASA and all the expenditures, he was like, no, we're taking it off completely because it's depleting our gold reserves in the Federal Reserve. We can't do this anymore.
it was that NASA's obviously important, but
Mhm.
Michael Hudson, who was a very prominent economist then, and now even, he says it was about the military spending.
Correct.
That's really what it was about. And
Yeah.
NASA, sure, they spent a lot of
Well, they're part of
money.
the military industrial complex. That they were a branch of the
Correct.
military before they became privatized. And the reason why they were privatized is because they wanted to use expenditures for other military spending. So they were like, well, you are creating commerce, like because NASA creates a lot of different types of products and consumer, like innovation. They're an innovation company basically, but they're semi-private organization now. So they make most of their income comes from the products and the different like inventions that they create as part of their ongoing research, and they monetize it. Like Tempur-Pedic, like that was monetized. The microwave, all kinds of different stuff they had that they created. I think Teflon also was from the military, but the NASA kind of perfected it. It's all kinds of stuff. But the NASA has a lot of patents that they sell to the private sector that helps to continue their budgets. But this started it during the Apollo missions. They tried to monetize as much as they could because their expenditures were so massive that the government was like, we can't keep giving you money, for these projects. So they were like, why don't you just monetize? And then they commercialized it with all the marketing and media and all this. And there's a lot of stuff that they were doing. They still do today.
Um, I think we're in World War III, but I think it's a process.
It's
Right?
cyber. It's a cyber, like
Sure,
trade,
it's
cyber.
cold,
We're in the early
cold,
stage. Yeah.
Cold War, if interwar period, as you say, we're not at 1939, but maybe we're 1928, 27, 32.
Yeah.
Who knows? We're kind of interwar period. I have on Telegram, I have a wide diversity of people whom I speak with. I got a chat with Russians, Chinese, people all over the world, Mexicans, Australians, etc. But one Chinese person shows me a photo of Chinese people buying a bunch of Russian baby toys and things, and she says, why don't Russians want kids? And my Russian friend says, well, because the economy is very bad and World War III is ahead. We recognize that there is a very real possibility that the West cannot accept defeat and will continue to escalate things. The economy, and we talk about the raw mineral wealth. No matter how much Russia is spending on this war, the resources, the people, the power of those new territories far exceeds the cost. But short term, immediately, people are feeling pain and the economy is not doing so well. Again, not my words. This Muscovite economy is shit. World War III is ahead. They're also experiencing, like Mohammed and Mehmed is the most popular names in Russia right now, as well as
It's massive
Artyom,
migration, yeah, because
Matvey,
they have to
Ruslan.
replace the population that's not having childbirth, and we're seeing that in Europe and the United States as well.
Let me just correct that. In the Moscow region, the name Mohammed has become more popular than Ivan for newborns. And in Europe, Mohammed Mehmed is the most popular name.
Yeah, they're just it's the only ones having kids are immigrants, because or people that come immigrants that do come in, because they're still traditional in regards to that, and it's just the economy, I mean, I would say it's partially economy, but it's possibly the social dynamics, and that's a whole other podcast altogether. But yeah.
And so, just on that thread, someone says, Mohammed, something tells me that those are coming from Chechnya, Dagestan, Tatarstan. They don't cause much trouble. And my Muscovite friend says, look, this is in North Siberia, Khanty-Mansiysk. It has an enormous amount of oil, but little population, so it's got a lot of migration inside. So that's how he seems to be explaining it. And he says, well, this Mexican says, is that doing well for Russia? And the Muscovite says, it's not catastrophic, but it doesn't feel great. I think it's about the same as everywhere else right now. So again, there's war. Things aren't doing well. People don't feel confident in, and the economy, right? The economy, the GDP figures. These are measures. These are numbers. We don't care about that. What we care about is what's real. But the economy is an abstraction, and we do care about what's actually reflected in reality through that abstraction.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the economy, we don't care that GDP has gone up 2% and we've imported 20% new people from Southeast Asia, or anywhere else, really. Latin America.
The same thing.
Mhm.
The same thing happened in 2930 as well. There was mass migration of people up until World War II. Between World War One and World War II, there's a massive migration of people going to America and Europe and other places.
My understanding is around 29, there was a lot of deportation of
That as well.
non-Americans because
That as
the
well.
wages were so depressed because no one could find jobs.
That's happening again under Trump's policies. The HB was the HB visa.
H-1B visas, yeah.
H-1B visa. He put 100,000, then he reneged it, which I said he would do. We've got a comment here from Up Syndrome. Russia plans to invite some 1 million Indian workers. So that's the other thing too. Is Southeast Central Asia, India is like the largest populated country in the world, and just the region in general. I mean, like basically 1/6 of the population of the planet lives in Central Asia, apparently. From the numbers that I'm rough estimate. It doesn't mean like a lot.
If you
like
put
one
a circle,
I think one eighth or 1/6, something like that. It's a huge amount of population. Is it even higher?
I think it's like half. If you put
Really?
one circle in that area around Nepal, say, you get all of China, you get all of India, you get Pakistan, Bangladesh.
Oh yeah, when you include China, yeah, of course. But
it's
I'm
like
just
half
speaking
the
of
world's population is in that area, and India. Like I think it's a statistic that's like you had a 1/7 chance of being born an Indian, so be thankful.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what it is mass migration, because when you think of that such a large population density and the level of technology or innovation or even like just resources in general, it's not enough to sustain those numbers. So they have to migrate, and that's what they're doing. They're migrating all over the world. There's Indians here in Georgia right now that have come here.
There was stuff that they were planning to invite Indians to Bulgaria.
Mm-hmm.
It's slave labor is what they want, but
basically, yeah.
The slave labor benefits those that own the industries because
the industrialist.
The price of wages is suppressed, so they're paying less, so they get more corporate profits as well. Aggregate demand is increased. Housing, there's more strain on housing. House prices going up. There's more strain on goods and transportation. All of these prices going up, and those that own the means of production, they are being. It's this neo-fascist state where you have the government artificially importing all these foreign peoples in order that those that are paying them the money to do so benefit a lot at the expense of the native people.
Yeah, an absurd amount of people. Yeah, I mean the thing is when you think about it, how is this dissimilar from the transition from World War One and World War Two with the market economy? You were seeing, like I said, massive migration, economic migrants, like Ireland and England going to the United States, and it was so bad in Ireland. Like they would go to the United States, there was not enough, the wages weren't high enough, the living conditions in the East Coast were suppressed, like you were saying, and they had to migrate back to Ireland because they couldn't afford to live in America. And then they can't try to come back again when they said, oh, it's a little bit better economically, and there was just this hustle between moving back and forth. Italians, like with Australia and the United States as well. There's massive migration from World War One to World War Two, and this is when after World War One's when they implemented the passport controls. That's when they started first issuing passports because of this mass migration. So we're seeing a lot of similarities. We're seeing a lot of similarities.
Passports did exist before, but they're not in mass. It wasn't.
They
normal.
They weren't
it wasn't
enforced.
necessary.
They weren't in mass.
Yeah, people did have. I've got some family passport scans from the 19th century, right, 1890s and the like. But it wasn't like if you wanted to go from France to Germany, you just had to walk. Maybe there's a toll booth. Maybe you got to pay like someone, but it wasn't like you cannot come in unless you show me your passport. That wasn't a thing. Also, yeah. So when it comes to Russia and immigration, and in general, the urban cities, they're horrendous, right? But the thing about Russia is it is massive. I can't even understand how massive Russia is. If you're bringing in workers to go and develop primary resources, secondary manufacturing, away from the city centers, away from the urbanized West, it makes kind of sense. I mean, there is a lot of, especially in the Far East, where they've been paying people from the Far East that don't have much opportunity to go and fight in the war in Ukraine and die for the country and here's some money, and they're being paid much less than in the more wealthy regions. If you're importing these people to go to the less developed regions, and hey, life's going to be hard, it's going to be cold, there's not that much, you don't have Western comforts, but we need you to go plant trees, cut down trees, smelt, mine. I can kind of understand. This is the difference between Russia and us in the West, say. At the same time, I don't know that that's necessarily happening. I don't know to what extent. I don't know the breakdown. I've seen lots of non-ethnic Russians in Russian cities. I don't know to what extent, how much, etc. I'm not such an expert on these internal migrant pressures in Russia. I do know that
we could basically conclude that it's basically economic. A lot of it, in a nutshell, basically. Yeah,
it's slightly different, I think, in Russia to say America, where they're being imported into the cities. Now, if you put a million Indians in Wyoming, it would devastate Wyoming and change it existentially and forever. At the same time, I don't know, maybe there's stuff to do in Wyoming that you might want to do. I'm not saying it's a good idea. I believe I wouldn't support that. But I mean, this is what's happening with Canada. Canada was always a resource colony for the British in the West, and that's kind of what they seem to be excelling at. I think they're taking the lead in organ harvesting, with the government saying, "Oh, you got a cold. Oh, you're depressed. Why don't you kill yourself?" Oh, okay, I guess. Thank you, government doctor. Oh, and by the way, sign here. We're going to take your organs.
Yeah, I mean that's a big like my recent lesson that I just finished where we started the podcast. We were talking about the Brave New World. We actually covered a podcast on that Brave New World, and the question had come up in seminar about euthanization in Canada, and like is it ethical, what's going on, what are the repercussions economically, and more or less, like I say, it's their universal healthcare system. They're not like
a government
the
healthcare system.
That's what I mean. It's government healthcare system, universal. So like the government can dictate who lives and who doesn't. So they were originally they had death panels and all of this. Apparently, that was it is what it is. But now it's literally like, okay, kill yourself because you're an economic burden to your family and to the state. So I mean, how is this dissimilar from dystopian Soviet society? You know what I mean? The Soviet Union, where go to gulag because you're a burden to the economy. Off to the gulag. I mean, how is it different from Nazi Germany, where they're just sending people to like death camps, to concentration camps because, where they were, because of their disabilities and stuff like that. I mean, this is fascism. This is Soviet communism.
Action T4. They didn't actually send them to the Action T4. They put them in vans with carbon monoxide and gas them as they're going around the city. I'm not going to express an opinion on euthanasia. There's pros and cons, but I think it's very different if it's privately done versus offered by the state, who are also corporate. Only when it's the government healthcare system. Government healthcare means the government is saying we have an absolute entitlement to total control over your body, your life, your health, and your death. And then when the government healthcare, when they're no longer ostensibly empowered to treat you, and Hippocratic oath, and which is all bullshit, right? They don't care. But when it's really expressly, look, you should probably tell them to kill themselves. The perverse incentives there are just crazy. When it's the government, look, you go to a private facility in Switzerland, they tell you to kill yourself. You say, I want to kill myself. They say, okay, we'll let you kill yourself. There was a Nobel economist, Daniel Kahneman. He recently, last year, killed himself because he was diagnosed with dementia. His wife went through it. He said, nah, I'm done. It's totally different to, there's a story of a 28-year-old, a beautiful young woman in Canada or maybe the Netherlands. Hey, I got depression. All right, kill yourself. I don't know much.
I do remember that story.
But
I do remember that story. We did publish it in the Straight Talk News channel, which the link's in the description. That was covered, and yeah, it was pretty sad. And there was nothing wrong with her. She just decided when to kill herself.
Well, mental illness is an endemic problem, and it's very serious. But I think
a lot of that seems, I'm not going to get into that too much, but I think a lot of that is just it's societal driven. It's big pharma driven, and I think it is what it is, and that's a whole other podcast altogether. But yeah.
But what we're seeing, some of these things just sound so horrific and dystopian that if you would have told people about this in the 1960s, about the state of the world today, maybe they would have killed themselves there or there. So what the hell? I don't want to. What a world! What
dystopian
a
future.
Terrible dystopian future that we're now living through.
Yeah. Huxley predicted it. A lot of stuff that he wrote about in Brave New World in the 19th century was the early 20th century was uncanny. But like I said, I seriously think that a lot of the stuff that was going on during the early 20th century that he wrote about as dystopian future was actually going on during that period as well. So they had eugenics, you had all kinds of stuff. The same stuff that we're talking about now, they were talking about 100 years ago. So I don't think it's much dissimilar. It's just that the difference between then and now is we have higher levels of technology. Obviously the size and scope of the world is much bigger. There's more global trade, and it's a faster paced society with information and different things that are involved. So it's a futuristic society, but it's dystopian nonetheless.
Yeah. As well as technology, it's the progression, advancement of the industrial technocratic system. So this is where Ted Kaczynski's ideological writings, we condemn all the heinous criminal acts that he did, but where he talks about you cannot compromise with technology because the technology is being used by the system to a faster pace than you. And if you try and even if you attempt to use technology against the system, it's like trying to weaponize your own chains. Your methods guarantee failure because the system metabolizes all resistance into its own metabolism. It's this is what he talks about. No matter what you do, the nature of technology is that it continues to expand and grow, and it is the most controlling and subversive and totalizing thing. And that's the system which he fought against, and he believed he was fighting a revolutionary war. He said, if we don't stop this, it's going to run away, and we're never going to have a chance. And that's why you go and listen to like the court transcript, and they're reading the horror of the things that occurred to some of the people, and they say, Sir, don't you have any remorse? And the court transcript reads that he's just sitting there, stone-faced, no empathy. Like, nah, because these people were, nodes in the revolutionary system against what is right, and they're bringing us into this dystopia that we are today. This is why he said it's so important to rebel against these circumstances which are offensive to human dignity, destructive of the life that's evolved on Earth over hundreds of millions of years, and leads to disaster now and at some point in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
That's an excerpt from Technological Slavery around page 190. He says that one of our most important worries should be that people may be made comfortable with almost anything, including conditions that we would consider horrifying. And that's exactly correct. These conditions are terrible, and people are comfortable, and that's one of the major problems.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely getting it seems like it's getting worse before it's getting better. But like I said, I think we're scaling into the dystopian or like a dark ages, and Victorian period was definitely in the 50s after World War II when we were in another kind of dystopian like, dark ages that we came out of. But yeah, we'll see. Definitely think that like I said, the recapping that we talked about, the commoditization of currency. So that's where it's going. We're going to get, we're going from fiat back to commoditization, using sound money, not necessarily gold, but just countries' resources like rare earth minerals, different stuff like that.
Could we go back to you said, how did Germany get out of hyperinflation? I have recorded that you said public works, remilitarization, and then invading others for their gold. Let's leave out, as you said,
That's
invading others for their
that's part
gold
of
is
it, and then the
not applicable
commoditization as
anymore.
well.
We want
Yeah.
the trade nowadays, because we understand trade and riches war destroys. But would you not say that the world is remilitarizing at a rapid rate, and especially with drone
100%.
technology?
100%. It's
EU
technologically
Defense
like
Fund.
advancing. Yeah. Yeah, it's the same. It's World War II all over again. It's just 1920s, 1930s all over again. I don't know if we actually. I think COVID might have been actually the Great Depression. I think it was prolonged from 2008 onward to COVID, and we still have yet to recover economically from the 2008 debt crisis. I broke that down on the Telegram channel, and I'm talking about it now. That if you look at the quantitative on the timeline between 2007 to 2025, it'll show, especially when you put in the amount of inflation, or the stagflation, if you will. We have not recovered. We still yet to recover from that financial, erasers, because basically, the banks created so much money through derivatives market, and they created all this massive wealth, and bubbles and bust cycles like the 29 crash is the resetting of that currency. So when there's an overabundance amount of currency, deflate it, you know, in order to get rid of it, they consolidate it, and they consolidate it through erasing financial markets. And that's what we saw in 29. We saw it again in 2008. And we're seeing it now. Like right now,
And
currency is basically getting erased. It's
just
being
to say,
commoditized. Yeah,
just quickly, the massive wealth that was created leading up to 2008 was for the few, not for the many. I mean,
correct.
they giving out loans, putting people into debt, and that wealth
Mhm.
went to the many. And then, right, the system's going to melt down. The government steps in to bail out those that have created these conditions, so they don't really feel penalties.
And again, like I said, there was deflation. There was deflation. They erased a lot of the financial markets, and this was the mon paw. This was like what they did in the 29 crash. After the 29 crash, where FDR confiscated gold, and then basically sold it back to him at a higher price. So they basically consolidated the debt. And by doing so, they erased financial markets so that the few could benefit and the government could benefit from the collapse. And that's what they're doing now with tariffs, with the technocracy, with the fiat, and that's why Trump is so focused, I think, on crypto. That's why Trump is so focused on tariffs, on the rare earth minerals, on all this stuff, is because they want to take control so that they can consolidate the debt, the $36 trillion of debt, into some
38.
other commodity. Yeah, 38 now or 40. What, by the time it hits 50, by the time. But that's basically what I think's going on. That's what I, as a professor in not economics but business and leadership, I really do think that they're planning something, or they've already had something that's in plan, that's been put in
So
motion.
yeah,
And
planned. This
they know what
is
they're
the
doing.
thing that
I'm not going to say like anybody says Trump's an idiot or government people are dumb. Government is government and business is business. So don't think anything different than government is government and business is business. And the thing is that government does their thing, business does their thing, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. You know.
Right. If you think they're stupid and not malevolent, why do you
Yeah.
think that? Oh, because they're the people, the puppet masters that they, not the puppets that they place in front of you appear stupid and incompetent and bumbling. Yeah, that's what they do. You are tax slaves on their tax cattle farm where they steal your money, enrich themselves at your expense, and this is what it's all about, right? It's government, it's mafia, it's business. It's very efficient mafia, very
Different kind of
efficient.
mafia. Yeah. Different kind of mafia. And that's what the mafia is. The mafia, basically the actual mob, not government mafia, but the mob is basically they consolidate power and they become very economically viable during times of bust cycles for a reason, because the government is inefficient, it collapses, financial markets collapse, and they find a solution to a problem. Maybe usually at the municipal level, because usually during the economic bust cycles like we saw in Detroit, where the pension funds in Detroit completely dried up, and they used the pension funds to pay off deficits and debts. And the great working people of Detroit's pension program lost all of their pensions. So the firefighters, police department, teachers, unions, all of these different people that are working in Detroit, like the boomer, the older generation, the great generation that worked in Detroit before its collapse, ultimate destruction, lost their pensions. And not only them, but like Enron and all these different private pensions and stuff. And this is just the result of greed. It's not necessarily incompetence; it's just greed, just simple greed. That's it, just simple greed. Billy Watts writes. It's all just about farming people. Yeah, exactly. Like that's it. Co-ops and growing, making things, commoditization, just making commodities. This is where it comes to. And like I talked about previously with Hoover, he implemented an executive order during the crash. They call it, we had Hoover bills and all this economic destruction, but he was paying farmers to basically grow crops, and then caused an imbalance in the commodities market, and all these crops became worthless, and
And this is the problem
deflation.
with central planning, is they're like,
Correct.
okay, here's a problem, we're going to intervene, and it causes more problems and it makes the situation worse, and it's necessarily that government action is distortionate and results in worse outcomes than if you leave it alone. And in fact, it tends to be that government action, government system policy is what's resulted in the problems in the first place. Now, that's not to say there's not market failures, but before one considers market failures, one ought to recognize and consider government failures, which tend to be worse and worse and worse.
It was interesting what Hoover did, because at first he did take that stance, that laissez-faire, let's just let the markets correct themselves. But when you have basically uh, fraudsters and banksters, and basically like financial mobsters, that basically destroyed the system and caused the collapse. And you just, okay, will it fix itself? Well, it's like, what are mobsters going to do when they're in competition with each other? They're going to start taking each other out. They're going to commit even more frauds and more crimes. So the fact that you didn't regulate means that you're either part of the problem or you created the problem, and then you just don't want to solve the problem. But by solving the problem is just more government involvement and QE and to infinity, and just more like, let's just fuck the market as bad as we can get it. It's not so much incompetence; it's just they don't want to go after the people that caused it. And they just want to let the greed and the fraud just continue and
Because they're
perpetuate.
paying them.
Basically, yeah.
So
Special
as
interests, banks.
we conclude, talking about solving the problem, short of joining the mafia, which I don't recommend, what should
Yeah.
what should the unorganized individual do, or how should they position themselves to navigate this changing system?
I would say like self awareness, like self sovereign. Just keep a little bit of gold, silver. Definitely, it doesn't hurt. I don't know about crypto or anything. That's on you. but definitely like have some basic knowledge of like to reduce your cost for services. So like know how to repair stuff, buy for longevity, like we talked about before. I wouldn't necessarily see even going out to rural areas because you can grow you like if you live in New York City, you can grow like tomatoes and stuff in your windowsill. I mean, you can make a community garden within your housing block. There's stuff like that we saw freedom gardens that were during World War II and during the Hooverville, like the Hoovervilles where they had like a community garden type thing. I mean, the main thing is just be vigilant and like be prepared as best you can. Canned goods, stuff like that. Like I would at least have a family member, a network of people that might have rural, friends or family that you have in rural areas, um, just in case if you need to get some type of food or some access to something in the city if you live in the urban environment. But that's how it is here in Georgia. Like they through the 91, 93 conflict, through the when they were gaining their independence, the people that had family and friends in villages were farming communities for the co-ops. They were at least having food coming into the city so they could eat because the food was rationed. It was a lot of issues going on. Um, I mean, that's all I can say is just basically build a network of people that friends and family that you trust, and at least have some connection to some type of food or commodity. And if you have knowledge and skill set, like and I don't think it's going to be that bad. I just think it's going to be a great reset, and like there's going to be massive deflation. And you're probably going to see maybe a rise in crime, but obviously mafia taking over, that sort of thing. Basically crime mob families and like warlord type stuff in like some of these more unstable countries. But for the most part, yeah, I don't know. It's gonna take time for it to completely collapse, but we're in the collapse now, definitely, like I predicted. Yeah,
Well, we are seeing a massive reduction. At least I am just a reduction in living standards. Prices going up,
that's it.
wages not going up or going down. Everything becoming more expensive, and so people are struggling more. So to take control of your future, it would be great if you can grow your own food, preserve your own food,
Yeah,
trade and barter, cook from scratch, save your own seed, and become as self-sufficient as you can. Again,
yeah,
we don't know exactly how terrible it's going to be. We talked about dark ages and Great Depression, and all of this
I don't
could
think that.
occur. It also could not be that bad, but certainly, if you're in debt, treat it as we're navigating the system transition. Um, you need to be on a revolutionary war footing. If you're in debt, get out of debt as quick as you can. Right, live as
Yeah,
frugal, Spartan as you can. Build up your savings. Save not only cash under the mattress. Don't put your money in banks unless you know that you're doing things for reasons. Unless you've got a strategy behind it. Don't put your money in banks. Better to have cash under the mattress, I think. Gold, silver, Bitcoin, maybe some stocks, but be very cautious right now. Remember that any pensions you have in the system, something you can't touch, something that's out there, if it's not liquid immediately available to you, it write it off. Maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't. Maybe it gets wiped out, maybe it doesn't. If stocks crash 2/3 and all your pensions, you can't touch them because they're managed by the pension system, then it doesn't matter. So
that's a
you know,
Detroit style loss in your pension fund basically, and or Enron style collapse where you actually do own stock and option equity in your pensions, but because the market crashed in '08. And Enron, because the company went bankrupt, like their stock went to nothing. So like all those pensioners that were investing in the Enron stock got pennies on the dollar. So yeah, that's what it is.
so revolutionary footing. Soil is worth its weight in gold, and yeah, don't screw around. I would say
Pretty
it's
much it.
don't be wasteful, and try and build what you can personally impact, whether that's your own skills, whether that's your own personal network. The more you're dependent on the system and things that could be in the future over there, that's really where you're going to be vulnerable.
Do you really like my final thoughts and conclusions on this with the data analysis? I don't know if you know this, but women make up 85% of the consumer market right now, retail market and consumer market overall. So the reality is that the people that are going to be most affected by this great reset are going to be women who want my spending, and that's why I don't think it's going to be too bad because men already know how to live within their means and they know how to survive. They have the survival instinct inside of them, obviously Sigma mindset. So I think the people that are going to be most affected because of this collapse or crash is going to be women, most likely.
Right, but women are an integral part of society, and men are also. They're,
Yeah,
they're
but when they're
different,
not married and they're living single and stuff like that, it's going to be
right? And
different.
there's a
That
cultural
yeah,
problem, but
yeah,
also,
yeah.
when they are, if you do have a family, if you do have a girlfriend or a wife, kids, and things keep going bad, it's gonna be difficult. And this is
They're
one.
just gonna not be able to do their nails and like go to the salon and stuff. They're gonna have to cut their own hair and do their own nails from now on. I mean
That's good.
that's given.
That's it's great, and you should.
It's
Yeah,
great
I
for
think
men, but I don't know about women. My nail salon's gonna be going out of business. When this crash happens, like it did in '08 and then it did during COVID.
and the women that know how to do crafts, sewing, even as basic as that,
Yeah,
great.
but how many Zoomer women like know how to do that? Like
It's just that I think there's
reality
a
wise,
cultural issue here. With
yeah,
men,
yeah.
I mean,
Not
fitness
just in the
very
United
important
States, not just in Western speaking countries, but in here in Georgia and like Russia and like
around the
China now,
world.
a lot of women, a
All
lot
over,
of
yeah.
women don't know how to do any of that stuff anymore. So they're going to be finding, especially with AI and like all the, it's we'll see what happens. I'm studying this right now. It would be a future podcast, and we'll talk about this, about the future dynamics of the female
just
economy.
just to
Yeah.
close, you were talking about how young women in Georgia, instead of knowing how to cook, when they say I want to let me feed you, or how did you characterize what they were doing, what you've
I'm going to
witnessed
go
them
ahead and
doing?
I'm gonna order some Walt. I'm gonna order some Uber Eats. Like yeah, like I'm gonna go on my phone and do an app, and I'm gonna order some food. That's how they cook. Not the older women, but like the Zoomer and like some of the millennial women. That's how they are. Yeah,
So,
it is what it is. But it's no different from the like Europe and America. It's the same as well right now.
mhm,
So we're
mhm.
so consumer driven and we're so like tech driven that like this is the norm. So that might change. I don't know. It is what it is. I think right now a lot of Sigma guys, a lot of like I wouldn't say the red pill community, but I would say definitely a lot of Sigma guys are now like starting to realize like, hey, I need to learn how to cook. I cook my own. You can see like I just cleaned all my pots and pans over here. As you can see, everything's lined up and cleaned for me to cook tomorrow. And I still use apps. I still order food a lot. So like I'm not don't want to be a hypocrite here, but yeah, I mean, I know how to cook. I know how to cook. I wash my own clothes. I know how to sew. I know how to do everything. I learned this, through middle school, and so on. So I know how to work on cars. I know how to do basic plumbing, electrical, all this stuff. So I'm pretty self sufficient in case if I have to rely on my skills. So not a big deal.
Oh, just closing remark on nutrition. Someone that I've been reading it quite a bit is Dr. Raymond Peat. He's got a website, raypeat.com/articles. You figure out your system, figure out whatever. But I think this really good for me. Really good for a lot of people I've spoken to. Got a little circle who all great stuff. So yeah, just figure out what works for you health wise, and focus on it. Pay attention, and yeah, be as healthy as you can, physically, mentally, financially, and with skill and discipline, right? Especially what you can do with your hands, what you have.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily like if you guys are spending your fiat, I don't see anything wrong with it, to be honest, at this point. Just if you can buy some gold and silver, but like if you want to spend the fiat like it's going out like it's water, hey, there with the amount of hyperinflation we have around the world and the stagflation, I don't blame you. Just spend it, no big deal. I don't feel bad. You know what I mean?
No, I
Maybe,
think don't be wasteful. Don't spend it. If you want to donate it
I,
to one of ours, that's great. But
yeah, that as well. Yeah,
or
donate. But
invest
yeah,
in gold, silver, Bitcoin
yeah,
wisely there.
yeah. Don't put all your money into that stuff. Just enough. You know, and like I said, there's a lot of experts on this. I'm not an expert in like that particular that type of stuff. But like Aaron Clary's actually pretty knowledgeable about how to prep and stuff for that. And there's a lot of people like obviously on the internet and other YouTube channels that you can follow for that. Hopefully we'll get Aaron Clary on here eventually, and a couple of people that know what they're talking about in regards to that, to get you some perspective. But yeah, it is what it is.
Okay. With that, Collapse 2025, the fall. Thank you all for joining us. Follow us on all our socials: Telegram, Locals, Rumble, YouTube, Substack,
Yeah.
and tune
Take
in
care,
next time.
guys.
Same
Yeah,
time every
remember.
week, Wednesday.
Yeah, and like I said, like, subscribe, and definitely share this with a lot of people. Take care.